Preview.
Better Love Radio with Tony and the Spaniard. Better Love Radio is not intended to be a perpetual online counseling service in and of itself. The dialogue expressed on the show is that of the hosts, Tony and the Spaniard. Better Love Radio does not diagnose, treat, nor offer medical advice to its listeners. The opinions stated by those participants are confidential and names have been altered to protect their identity. Now that you heard all that, let's get on with the show.
Preview.
Enjoy. Hey, welcome to the show. This is the Spaniard along with
Tony Sandella.
And this is our first show, so we're going to be talking a couple of things about some write-ins and just some shit that we got over the internet. So this is just not even a for real recording, so we're just testing out the levels. So
To a sex.
going back to what you said about buying women underwear, now I always thought that was more of a, I don't know, welcoming gesture or to tell the woman, this is how I view you, or this is what I think about seeing you in. But you're saying that's not always the case. The female may not, or the woman would feel almost insulted, maybe at times.
You know, that is the case, because I remember a couple that I was working with a while back where he would not have sex with her unless she were dressed in underwear and linens, lingerie. And she became upset and didn't want to have sex with him because that was the only condition under which they could have sex. Mm-hmm. She would have to put on makeup, she would have to get dolled up, do her hair, put on these clothes, and the whole ritual of taking those off and, having to get dressed up. She didn't care for that. Mm-hmm. It totally eliminates the idea of afternoon quickies and things like that if you have to prepare yourself to go to bed with your husband. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it can cause problems.
Now, were they a newlywed couple? And were they married for a long time? Was there kids? Did they have kids that were probably throwing a wrench into their routine? Or, because I know I do get questions asked sometimes where, is it okay to have quickies throughout the day when the kids are home? And, what do you say to that?
I say that's fantastic. I mean, obviously, if you're not doing that in front of your children, that's a requirement.
Well, not in front of your children, but
right.
Like I said, kids got a movie popped in, they're watching, whatever, Dora the Explorer, and, mom and dad go upstairs and, kind of make the beds, make some noise, and next thing you know, 2 minutes later, back to normal.
I'm all about that, and I tell couples I work with that's what door locks are for.
Exactly.
You keep your door locked, explain to the kids that nobody's getting attacked. If you hear anything, don't call the police. Everything's good. And, it doesn't have to be intercourse. There's a lot else that can be done in 5 to 10 minutes.
So it's almost kind of like a contract. You got to sit down with the kids and say, all right, this is what's going to happen. Whenever mommy and daddy said they're going to go change or they're going to go take a nap, this is what you do. So is that something that as a person who deals with sexual relations and relationships and sexual issues, is that something that would be pretty common to suggest to couples?
Absolutely, because the largest complaint I get from couples is that they're not having sex often enough, especially when you have kids. Mm-hmm. That can really throw a wrench in things, and a lot of couples get resentful toward each other because they don't have time for sex anymore, because there's an expectation they should be having it at a certain rate, and when it's not, then people get frustrated and they just stop asking for it. And so when I talk to couples about sex, I emphasize that it doesn't have to be your same standard 45-minute performance on a Saturday evening when the kids are away at grandma's house. Mm-hmm. That there are things you can do during the day that you can talk to your kids and say, look, when mommy and daddy are up in the room for 5 or 10 minutes, don't bother us unless the house is on fire. Mm-hmm. We're just going to have some private time. We're going to talk for a little while. That's plenty of time for a blowjob or for just some touch or a quick back rub or foot rub or something like that, just some kind of physical connection. And it's important to schedule those things or to have those things on a regular basis.
Yeah.
So it can be worked out. It just requires a little creativity and communication with your kids.
I don't know. Do you think in this day and age, do you think creativity has kind of fell to the wayside, or are people just quick to throw in the towel and say, you know what, we're not having sex anymore. The fire's not there anymore. I call it quits. I mean, have you noticed any of that in your experiences?
Absolutely. That's a large presenting issue that I deal with is, people who they just don't have sex anymore because it's boring.
Mm-hmm.
If it's almost like sex is a routine and this is just the way we do it, and couples even laugh at themselves when I suggest that. It's like going to a play on a Thursday night. The playbook is going to read the same way on a Friday night and a Saturday night.
Mm-hmm.
If your sex is 45 minutes long and it's scripted, where I touch her here, then she touches me there, then I flip her around and do it this way, then she does me this way, then I go down on her, and then I have sex with her and I don't come and she doesn't either, and she gets frustrated and falls asleep, and I walk to the fridge and grab a beer. Jesus Christ, who'd want to have sex with you if that's as interesting as you are?
Wow. So how would you change that up then? Let's say we did, you did have a couple that came to you with that same scenario, and what's the first step for something like that? Because I mean that sounds horrible. I mean for me, that it's to have that kind of routine and not be able to come. I mean that's just, man, that's a rough week.
Well, and when sex happens that way and you're not able to have an orgasm, this is the problem with some people's sexual paradigm, is that successful sex has to culminate in orgasm, hopefully at the same time, and it has to be raging and loud and wonderful. Well, you're not in a porno flick.
Mm-hmm.
You're at home, and those are paid professionals. So what I do is ask people to change their paradigm about what is sex.
Mm-hmm.
Does it have to be 45 minutes long? Does it have to be with our clothes off? Can we just, give a back rub to each other, or can I stick my tongue in your throat like I did when we were 17 years old, and just kiss and caress and do that physical sort of stuff that couples just kind of stop doing after a while? And I encourage people to think of that as sex.
Yeah.
If you're too tired to have intercourse because you've had a long day, well, hey, hon, you got 10 minutes for a blowjob? Or, I'm kind of tired. I've worked hard the mill all day long. I kind of hurt, and I'd like to get in the shower, but, I got a couple minutes. I go down on you. I could, rub you for a little bit, and we can, laugh and have a couple glasses of wine over it.
It's going to be just in that order. All right, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, have a glass of wine, I'm going to finish you off, and there we go. I'm going to watch a little Dancing with the Stars later.
Yeah, I encourage people to have fun with sex and not to be so serious about it, because a lot of people I counsel, they come with hurt feelings and resentments because, women come in and they say, well, my husband isn't able to come, when I'm on him or under him, and what's wrong with me? What's wrong with me?
Mm-hmm.
What am I not doing right? And then I have men who, they rub their women the wrong way. The women don't say anything about it because they don't want to hurt his feelings. Because if you talk about a man and his penis, oh boy, that can be really difficult to hear, any kind of criticism. So I encourage couples to be honest and open about communication, not see it as criticism, but just to see it as, hey, I want to make you feel better. Tell me how to do that, because I don't know. How do you like to do it?
Yeah.
Give me your hand, show me how you do it. And
Yeah.
it's really not that hard. It's interesting that people can take their clothes off in front of each other, but they can't talk about it.
That is pretty odd. I mean, is that more of a generational thing, or is it a cultural thing? Compared to Europe and other countries, I mean, we're very, very conservative when it comes to nudity and even talking about sex, whereas other countries, it's not that big of a deal.
I think in the United States we're a little more puritanistic.
You think?
I think because of our Christian background and and other reasons too, not just Christian, but I think as a culture we're not as sexual as sexually open as some other cultures. That's why a radio show like this is so unusual, because people aren't supposed to really talk about sex.
But why though? Why aren't they supposed to talk about sex? Where did they get that from?
I growing up, and I can say this because I'm Catholic, but growing up that way, we were taught that sex is procreation, not recreation. And a woman, it doesn't matter if she has an orgasm or not, because sex it serves a function, and it's not supposed to be I don't know, it's not really supposed to be fun, and certainly it's not proper to have lustful thoughts about other people. The religion teaches you, and that's sinful, and so the sin has always been associated with it. In fact, I remember doing some reading that in ancient times, I know that's kind of vague, but in the history of the Catholic Church, at any rate, there's always been a big bias against sex and the demonization of it. And so I think Catholicism being such a huge religion and an influence on masses of people over the years, it certainly affected the way we talk about sex and how we feel about it.
Where's your? I'm kind of taking a quick tangent here, but what is your stance on sex education in the schools? Like, say, after a certain grade, maturity level, to actually offer some type of not like back in the day when we went to school, it was just a quick projector reel-to-reel video of how babies are made, but actual how to treat a woman, how to treat a man, how to talk. Do you think something like that would be beneficial to the future, our future generations coming up?
I'm going to sound conservative here, and I know this is totally unexpected, but I feel like kids should get their values education at home. Sex education in the schools, I'm a huge fan of. Nobody likes abortion. Nobody likes, kids having sex and getting pregnant and falling out of school. And I think one of the major ways to address that issue is through prevention and educating kids about sex and, even drugs, so that some of their questions are answered. I have young people come to me, 13, 14 years old, who say to me, my girlfriend told me that the first time I have sex, I can't get pregnant. And it's amazing to me, and I shake my head. How can you believe things like that? And it needs to happen in the schools. And I know a lot of people are opposed to that, but the same Christian folks who are opposed to sex education are also opposed to abortions and about Planned Parenthood and things like that. I think being proactive and teaching kids about sex, not in a perverted way, but in a biological way, I think is very valuable.
Yeah, but that's probably not going to happen in our lifetime. So the next step would be, again, a show like this, having counseling sessions with people. But I think it really comes back down to, I hate to say this because I'm a man, but I think men have a tendency of being clueless. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think men really know how to treat a woman nowadays.
I think you're exactly right. And interestingly, it's public knowledge. Steve Harvey wrote a book a couple of years back about that subject, about how men just don't know how to treat women, and he kind of spells it out for us.
Yeah.
In my counseling sessions, I tell women all the time, and this sounds terrible, but I say, men are a little dense. You have to spell things out to us.
Yeah.
We don't have a crystal ball. We can't read your mind. We don't know what you need, how you need it, and when.
That would be a pretty damn good invention if we can come up with something like that.
Oh, absolutely. I'd love to. We could sell them like hotcakes.
Oh, yeah. We'll get
Steve
Harvey.
Up at the office. Yeah, all day long.
Get Steve Harvey involved. We could market it. I think that'll be something.
Yeah. But I think communication about your feelings, and I think it's very necessary.
Yeah. No, you get a lot of that though from the women though who say maybe just the opposite. Maybe they're the ones that are clueless.
Every once in a while I do, but I would say it's more men in my experience. And again, I have to tell women, tell us.
Right.
Tell us what you need. Tell us when you need it.
Right.
Don't assume. And, women feel like, well, why should I have to tell him that? He should know.
Should. Right. There's that big word, should.
Well, we don't.
Right.
So if you want it, you have to spell it out. It's not that we're being insensitive. We're not being insensitive pricks. It's just sometimes we don't understand it. And as a man, we're a little narcissistic, I want to say, too, because when it comes to sex and relationship, if it's not a need for us, then it doesn't occur to us that it would be a need for you.
Right.
So if we don't need it, we don't do it.
Right.
See, men, for example, when it comes to sex, we don't need a back rub. We don't need to be held and talked to for 15 minutes and talk about our day and unwind and have a glass of wine. We don't need that warming up that a lot of women need. And there's certainly nothing wrong with that.
Right.
So I have to teach men in my office, look, this is what women, and I'm generalizing, not all women, but this is what, she wants. This is what she needs. This is what she's telling you. If you want some fantastic and more frequent sex with her, do you really have to do all those things? Yes.
Yeah.
It's not hard.
And you're almost going to have to need like a whiteboard or some visual aid sometimes to get the point across. But I think consistency would probably be one of the big ones to teach these guys, especially the younger guys. I remember talking to I forgot where I was. I was waiting somewhere, doctor's visit or plane or something, and I was just trying to kill some time, shoot the shit with some people, and as I like to do. And this guy was telling me about how he broke up. Him and his girlfriend had broken up because she told him he did not know how to treat her. And so when I asked him, well, what'd you do? He's like, well, like invite my buddies home. She was dressed up in lingerie, and I didn't think anything of it. I thought that was the way she was going to bed, and I brought friends over and started playing some Halo or whatever. I'm like, damn, you're an idiot. I mean, you see something like that, yeah, you drop everything. At least for me, I'll drop everything if that were to happen. But it just seems like the younger generation they just have too much on their mind, other than how am I gonna make this woman happy. So yeah, I don't know. I think you got your hands full up here for some of these guys that are gonna need this type of help.
Well, brother, I'm here for you. Call us, call the show.
Yeah.
Write us messages. We're here to educate.
Yeah. Now, speaking of educating, what type of topics we're going to be talking about in upcoming shows?
Well, one of the things I want to talk about is infidelity, because it's one of the major reasons that people come to see me.
Mm-hmm.
And I was reading some statistics the other day that roughly 50% of all men in the course of a marriage report being unfaithful to their wives. The number is slightly lower for women, but it's a huge problem.
Mm-hmm.
It's a huge issue.
Okay.
And I think these days people don't treat commitment like they used to. With the divorce rate of 50% roughly, and people who get married, it's almost like marriages can be made to be thrown away.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll dispense of it in 5 years when I'm bored, and I'll find somebody new.
Yeah.
And so it's a huge problem. And there's a lot of pain when it comes to infidelity for both people who do it typically. Mm-hmm. And I like to help couples through that and teach them that, okay, this happened, but you can actually have a better marriage or relationship after the fact. Mm-hmm. And I'd like to say I'm pretty successful with most of the couples I talk to. They decide to stay in their relationship and to work it out with me, and it's really rewarding to see people turn it around.
Yeah. Now, besides infidelity, what other topics can our listeners look forward to as well?
I'd like to talk at one point about sexual attraction, how to get that returned. I have a lot of people who come and they say, the fire is gone. Mm-hmm. I don't have the desire for my wife like I used to, and this too is a major reason that people cheat. I'm just bored with my relationship.
Right.
A lot of guys, we're like 4-year-old kids. You throw us a new toy, we play with it for 3 days, we get bored and throw it in the closet and don't want to look at it anymore.
Right.
And unfortunately, a lot of people treat marriage that way these days.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things I want to help people with, is how to keep that spark alive, how to get the interest back. And sometimes I use the metaphor of the gymnasium. Mm. A lot of people come to me and say, well, I just don't get aroused by my wife. And I say, you don't have to be. Mm-hmm. This is relationship maintenance. It's like going to the gym. Sometimes we really don't want to. We really don't feel like it.
Yeah.
But boy, we're on that treadmill for about 10 minutes and you're like, oh, this ain't so bad.
Yeah.
And then you get into it, and then you leave there feeling, wow, I'm glad I did that.
Yeah.
Sex can be the same way.
That's interesting. Yeah, that's a pretty cool tidbit. All right. Now, if people want to call in or give us some input or even ask questions for future shows, what's the best way to do that?
Well, once the show gets our website going, I also have a personal website, TonySandella.com. People are welcome to call or write in with questions. If people want it to be anonymous, I'll have a phone number on the site. They can call me on my personal phone. I can jot down some notes, or they could do it the old-fashioned way and just send letters in the mail. This is kind of like a Dear Abby kind of form.
Yeah.
And everything shared on the show would be perfectly confidential, no names mentioned. And if I think the identifying information is a little too specific and close to home, I can change it a little bit. But your questions, most of them will be answered when we can get to them. And I think it's going to be fun.
Badass. There you have it, folks. Again, this is Better Love Radio with Tony and the Spaniard. Catch us for future shows. We're going to be promoting this throughout this month, and hopefully launching our first official show sometime in October. Hopefully either the first or middle part of the month. So keep an eye open for us. Again, the name of the show is Better Love with Tony and the Spaniard. And on behalf of the crew here, the production company, I'd like to say thank you for listening and tuning in. And until next time,
Thanks for listening, and we're looking forward to it again.
have a good one. And we're